Now today, I want to start with something that's been happening in our own practice because I think it perfectly illustrates what this episode is about. A public service announcement, a genuine PSA gets shared to people who've never even heard of you. Think about the PSAs that you've seen in your lifetime, from road safety campaigns all the way through to mental health messages. Nobody shares those because they're promoting someone. They share them because the information matters, okay? Because someone in their life needs to see it. Because passing it on feels like an act of service, not an act of marketing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing in Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. Now, today, I want to start with something that's been happening in our own practice because I think it perfectly illustrates what this episode is about, okay? Now, like you, we create content regularly for our social media, and occasionally, very occasionally, some of it goes viral. But a lot of it, like a lot of yours, gets missed, okay? It gets seen by the people already following us. Maybe they like it, maybe they comment, but very often it doesn't go anywhere new. Now, a little while back, we started creating content about concussion in kids, the signs to look for, the misinformation that's out there, what parents need to know that most of them don't. And something happened that we hadn't seen in a little while, and that is it started to spread. Not because we boosted it, not because we posted more frequently, but because parents started sharing it, tagging friends, sending it to their sports clubs, reaching out and asking, can you come and speak to our group? Now, we've got parents actively pulling us into football clubs, netball clubs, school communities, running workshops that we didn't have to sell because the community is selling it for us. Now, I want to be clear, okay, about something here, because if you looked at our social media alone, you wouldn't get the full picture of how this is actually spreading, okay? This didn't happen just because of a post that performed well. It happened because we carried the message everywhere. We created content on our socials. We emailed our patient database. We're having one-on-one conversations with patients in the practice, and those patients carried it out into their communities from there. Each touch point amplified the others. The social content gave people something to share. The email reached people who'd missed the social posts. And the in-practice conversations created personal advocates who started pulling us into their clubs and their groups. So really what I'm talking about here is it became an ecosystem. Now, I mentioned this because a chiropractor with 200 followers on Instagram can absolutely create a PSA that spreads. You don't need a huge following. All you need is a message that's worth spreading and a commitment to carry it across every touch point that you have. Now, compare that to content that we've created in the past about raising healthy kids, the benefits of nerve system care, or why chiropractic matters for your family, okay? This is good content. It's important content, but it doesn't spread in the same way, okay? So I've been sitting for this question for a little while now. What was different about the concussion content? And the answer that I keep on coming back to is this. It wasn't marketing content. It was a public service announcement. And that is what today's episode is going to be all about. Now, most content that chiropractors make is marketing material dressed up as education. And people, your community, can feel the difference, even when they can't really articulate it. Marketing material gets consumed by the people already following you, the people who are already interested in chiropractic. But a public service announcement, a genuine PSA, gets shared to people who've never even heard of you. Think about the PSAs that you've seen in your lifetime, from road safety campaigns all the way through to mental health messages. Nobody shares those because they're promoting someone. They share them because the information matters, okay? Because someone in their life needs to see it. Because passing it on feels like an act of service, not an act of marketing, okay? Now, this is the energy shift that you're looking for in your content, okay? And here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, how do I market my practice? And start asking, what do my community need to know right now, okay, that they don't yet have good information on? Those are two very different questions, and they produce two very different types of content. Now, before we go any further, I want to be honest about something here, okay? Not every piece of content that you create needs to be a PSA, and expecting that is often and is going to be very unrealistic. It's going to put so much pressure on you that you're going to stop creating content altogether. Your content library needs regular content too, the education posts, the tips, the explainers, the content that serves the people already following you, okay? That content still has real value. But every now and then, you want to create something that travels, something that gets shared beyond your existing audience, something that finds new people through the people that already trust you. That's a PSA. And this episode is going to be about how to create one on purpose. So, let me now break down what actually makes a piece of content a PSA, because I think if we understand the ingredients, we can start to create them much more intentionally. Now, the way I look at it is there are 4 ingredients. Now, ingredient number 1 is that it addresses something that your community is already worried about, okay? A PSA doesn't create concern. It meets one where it already exists, okay? So that's a big difference. The difference between telling people they should care about something and showing up in the middle of something they're already carrying, okay? The concussion content worked because parents were already worried about this. They're already confused. They're already searching for answers. They're already having the conversation at school pickup, in their group chat. We didn't create the worry. We just showed up with something useful right in the middle of it, okay? If we compare that to content about chiropractic and how it supports the immune system, this might be true. And yes, it's important. But if your community isn't already lying awake at night thinking about immune function and chiropractic, you're creating a concern rather than meeting it, okay? Now, that's marketing, not a PSA. Now, ingredient number 2 is this, is it carries information that feels new or novel, okay? Let me say that plainly. We can't keep sharing information or content about how to choose a pillow, the 3 stretches for lower back pain, or the importance of staying hydrated, okay? That information is not new. Your community has seen it hundreds of times. And when something isn't new, it doesn't get shared. You see, a PSA brings something to the surface that people haven't heard framed this way before, okay? It might be a connection that they haven't made. It might be a question that they hadn't thought to ask. Now, the concussion content felt new because most parents had never been told of the nervous system impact a knock to the head of the child can go undetected and unaddressed for months, okay? That was genuinely new information for most of the parents that saw it, okay? And the new information, that matters, okay? That's the one that gets shared. Now, ingredient number 3 is it needs to serve the community, not serve the business. This is one that most chiropractors find hardest to do because we're trained to always bring it back to chiropractic, to always close with, this is why you should come and see us. But a genuine PSA has no sell in it, and people can feel that absence immediately. When someone reads a piece of content and thinks this person is genuinely trying to help my community, not trying to get patients, the trust that it creates is enormous. And paradoxically, content that doesn't sell converts better than content that does because people share it. And when someone receives it from a friend that they trust, this is the warmest possible introduction to your practice. Ingredient number 4, it creates a natural duty to share. This is the test. When someone reads a genuine PSA, they feel like they'd be doing a disservice to somebody that they care about by not passing it on. Not that, oh, this is interesting, but it is, I need to share this with my sister. I need to share this with a school Facebook group. I need to show my training party. The feeling is of duty. And that's what separates a PSA from everything else that we create. If you had to read over the last 10 pieces of content and ask, would someone feel like they were doing a disservice by not sharing this? Be honest with yourself. How many of them would pass that test? Now, let me make this practical because I don't just want you to understand what a PSA is. I want you to be able to build one. Now, here's my 5-step roadmap. I'm going to walk you through each step using the concussion content that we've been talking about so you can see exactly how a real PSA gets built from scratch. Now, step number 1, what you need to do is you need to find the worry, all right? So you need to find something that your community is already anxious about, that they don't yet have a clear and reliable answer on. Now, for us, that was concussion in kids. Parents were worried about it, they were confused about it, and they were getting conflicting information about it. A feeling like nobody was giving them a straight answer. That's the worry, and we found it because we were paying attention. Now, step number 2 is that we want to apply what I call the PSA test. Before you build anything, ask yourself one question. If someone in my community were to read or watch this, would they feel like they were doing a disservice to a friend by not sharing it? Okay, let me say that again. If someone in my community were to read or watch this, would they feel like they were doing a disservice to a friend by not sharing it? For the concussion content, the answer was clearly yes. Every parent who watched it thought of another parent immediately. If the answer to that question isn't a clear yes, it's regular content, and that's fine, but keep looking for a topic where the answer is yes. Now, step number 3. Frame it as information, not as a promotion. Start with the community's experience. Start with the worry that they're already carrying, not with chiropractic, not with what you do. The concussion content didn't open with, "Hi, I'm a chiropractor, and today I want to talk with you about how we can help concussion." It opened with the parents' experience, the confusion, the fear, the lack of good information. And it put something genuinely useful into their hands. The practice and what we do came later, if at all. Now, step number 4, okay? Let the urgency be real. A genuine PSA has natural urgency because the information actually matters. You do not need to manufacture it. If you find yourself writing or saying things like, "This is important," or "You need to share this," that's a signal that urgency isn't coming from the content itself. Real urgency sounds like, "Most parents are never told this, and by the time they find out, months have passed." The urgency is in the information, not in the language around it. Now, on to step number 5. Share it and watch for the right signals. When you put it out there, don't measure success by likes, watch for shares, watch for tags, watch for comments that say, "Sending this to my friend," or "This is exactly what we needed to know." Those are the signals that tell you that the content is traveling. Those are the signals that tell you that you've built a real PSA. Now, here's what I want you to do this week. I don't want you to actually create anything. I want you to just listen. Because here's what I've come to understand. PSA topics are all around us. They're there every single day. They're in the conversations that you're having at school pickup. They're in the news. They're in the Facebook groups your patients belong to. They're what your patients are saying in the consult room before the clinical part of the visit even starts. Okay? They're what your team is talking about in between patients. These are the conversations that are happening all around you, but unless you're actively looking for them, probably you're completely blind to them. So this week, everywhere you go, I want you to listen for the reoccurring worry. The things that people keep coming back to, the questions that nobody seems to be answering well. Write it down in their words, not in your clinical interpretation from it, their actual words. And at the end of the week, take that list and run each through the roadmap that we talked about before. Ask one question. Would someone feel like they were doing a disservice to a friend by not sharing content on this topic? And if the answer is yes, then you've found a PSA. Now, let me bring this back to where we started. The concussion content spread because it was a genuine public service announcement. It addressed something that our patients were already worried about, and it gave them information that they genuinely needed. It carried something new, something most parents hadn't heard framed that way before, and it served the community with no sell attached. It created a natural duty to share because every patient who watched it thought of another parent immediately. We didn't create that conversation. We found it and we joined it, and we showed up with something genuinely useful right in the middle of it. That's the important shift. From marketing content that informs the people already following you to a public service announcement that travels through the people who already trust you. Now, when you make that shift, your content stops being something that you push out into the world, and it starts being something that your community pulls through it. All right, folks, that's it for today. Thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives, and I'll see you back here next week. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.